My mother left me in the park when I was 3 years old and never came back to pick me up. She always beat me and considered me a bad omen. She said I was a useless daughter. She always wanted to give birth to a son because she thought that sons were the ones who made a career. Daughters are just trash. My name back then wasn't Emily. It was Faye. Just Faye. No middle name, no sweetness attached. My mother, Margaret Hill, she never said my name like it meant anything. It was always sharp, like a slap. Faye, get over here. Faye, stop crying. Faye, kneel. I didn't even know what kneel meant at first. I thought it was a game, until my knees hit the cold kitchen tile and stayed there. She'd make me kneel for hours, sometimes because I spilled milk, sometimes because I looked at her wrong, sometimes just because. I'd be there, tiny legs shaking, stomach growling so loud I thought the neighbors could hear it through the walls. And they did hear. Mrs. Carter next door. She'd peek over the fence sometimes, her face all pinched with worry. "Margaret, the child's starving," she'd say. My mother would laugh, not a real laugh, but the kind that cuts. "She's naughty. I'm teaching her." Teaching me. That's what she called it. I don't remember my father much from those early days. David, he came later, after my real dad left. But Margaret, she was always there, always angry, always watching me like I'd done something terrible just by existing. It started the day I was born, I guess. She told me once, years later, when she was drunk and mean, that the bleeding wouldn't stop after they pulled me out. The doctors had to do emergency surgery. They told her, calm as anything, "You might not be able to have more children." She didn't cry. She didn't thank God I was alive. She just stared at the ceiling and said, "I wanted a son." A son. That's all she ever wanted. Not me, not a daughter. A son. So when I came out, a girl, small, crying, alive, she looked at me like I'd stolen something from her, like I'd taken her future and crushed it in my tiny fists. I didn't understand any of that then. I just knew love felt like hunger, and safety felt like hiding under the table when her footsteps came thundering down the hall. There was this one day, I must have been just over 2, when I tried to touch her leg. I wanted to be picked up. I'd seen the moms on TV do it. They'd scoop their kids up, kiss their heads, laugh. So I reached. My fingers barely brushed her skirt. She turned so fast I thought she'd fall. "Don't touch me," she hissed. "You bring bad luck." Bad luck. That's what she started calling me. Not Faye, not baby. Bad luck. It got worse after she went to that fortune teller. I didn't know what a fortune teller was. I just knew Mama came home different. Her eyes were wild, like she'd seen a ghost. She grabbed me by the arm so hard it left little fingerprint bruises. "You," she said, shaking me. "You're the reason. You're cursed. You're blocking my son." I didn't know what blocking meant. I didn't know what a son was, not really. But I knew cursed, because she said it every day after that. Cursed child. Bad omen. You'll ruin us all. She stopped feeding me regular, said I didn't deserve it, said I had to earn it. I'd sit at the table, hands folded, staring at an empty plate while she ate in front of me. Sometimes she'd push a crust of bread my way, like I was a dog. There, that's enough for bad luck. The neighbors tried. God, they tried. Mr. Lopez from across the street, he brought over a plate of tamales once, said, "For the little one." Margaret took the plate, smiled sweet as sugar, then shut the door and dumped the food in the trash. "We don't need charity," she told me, "especially not for you." But they kept watching, kept whispering. "That poor baby," Mrs. Carter would say to her husband loud enough for me to hear through the window. "She's skin and bones." I got good at being quiet, at making myself small, at pretending I didn't exist, because existing made her mad. Then one day, she didn't come home right after work. I waited, knelt in the corner like I was supposed to. The sun went down, my legs went numb. Finally, the door opened, but it wasn't just her. There was a woman with her, old, wrinkled, wearing too many rings, the fortune teller. They sat at the kitchen table. I wasn't allowed to move. The woman pulled out cards, big ones with pictures. She laid them out slow, muttering. Margaret leaned forward, hungry for every word. The fortune teller tapped one card. A tower on fire. "This child," she said, pointing at me without looking. "She is the storm. She blocks the sun. She brings ruin. You must cut her out." Cut her out. I didn't know what that meant. But Margaret did. Her face changed, not angry anymore, determined, cold. She stood up, walked over to me, knelt down so we were eye to eye. For 1 second, I thought maybe she'd hug me. Maybe she was sorry. She wasn't. "You're going to help me fix this," she said. Her voice was soft, almost kind. That scared me more than yelling. The next morning, she dressed me in my only clean dress, the blue one with the stain on the hem. She brushed my hair, first time in months. "We're going on a trip," she said. "Just you and me." I believed her. She carried me to the car, buckled me in. I fell asleep on the way. When I woke up, we were at a park. Big trees. A playground in the distance. Kids laughing. Swings moving. She set me down on the grass. "Stay right here," she said. "Mama's going to get ice cream. Chocolate, okay? You wait." I nodded. I loved ice cream. I'd only had it once. She walked away. Her shoes clicked on the path. I watched her go. Waited. The sun was warm. A butterfly landed near my foot. I smiled. Minutes passed. Then more. The butterfly flew away. I stood up. Looked around. "Mama?" No answer. I walked a little. Called again. "Mama?" Still nothing. The playground kids were leaving. A mom scooped up her son, kissed his cheek. They got in a car and drove off. I sat back down, hugged my knees, waited. The sky turned orange, then purple. The park lights came on. Still no mama. I started to cry. Not loud, just quiet tears, the kind that come when you're too tired to scream. A janitor found me hours later, curled up by the slide, shivering. He asked my name. I told him Faye. He asked where my mom was. I pointed to the path. "Ice cream," I whispered. He didn't find her. Word spread fast. Little girl. Abandoned. 3 years old. The whole neighborhood knew by morning. But here's the thing. They didn't know the half of it. They didn't know about the kneeling, the hunger, the fortune teller, the curse. They just saw a mother who walked away. And me? I was still waiting, still believing she'd come back with that chocolate ice cream. She never did, but someone else did. The park was quiet that morning, the kind of quiet that feels too big for a little kid. The grass was still wet with dew, and the swings hung still. No wind to push them. Mama set me down near the big oak tree, the one with the low branches I could almost reach if I jumped. "Stay right here, Faye," she said again, smoothing my dress like she cared. Her hands were cold. "Ice cream's coming. Chocolate." I nodded hard, eyes on the path where the ice cream cart usually parked. She walked away, her heels clicking slower than usual, like she was counting steps. I sat cross-legged, picking at a dandelion, waiting. The sun climbed. A squirrel ran past, stopped, stared. I offered it the flower. It took off. More minutes. My stomach growled. I looked up the path. No cart, no mama. I stood, tiny shoes sinking in the soft dirt. "Mama?" My voice sounded small, swallowed by the trees. Nothing. I took 3 steps, then 5, toward the playground. Empty. The slide looked tall and lonely. I turned back to the oak. Still no one. Panic started low in my belly, the same twist I got when Mama locked the bedroom door at night. I ran to the path, scanning both ways. Cars hummed far off, but no heels clicking back. "Mama!" Louder now, throat scratchy. A jogger passed, earbuds in, didn't look down. I grabbed the hem of his shirt. "My mama's getting ice cream." He pulled away, muttered something, kept going. I stood there, fists clenched, tears hot on my cheeks. The park wasn't fun anymore. It was huge, and I was shrinking. I started walking in circles, calling, voice cracking. Past the sandbox, around the duck pond, ducks quacked like they were laughing at me. My legs got heavy. The blue dress stuck to my back with sweat. I sat on a bench, too high for my feet to touch ground. Hours, maybe. The sun baked the metal slide till it shimmered. I hugged my knees, rocking. She'll come, I whispered, like a prayer. But the path stayed empty. My throat burned from crying. Hunger gnawed sharper than ever. I remembered the crusts Mama sometimes tossed. Better than nothing. There was nothing here. Shadows stretched long. Streetlights blinked on. Orange pools on the grass. Cold crept up my bare arms. I slid off the bench, walked to the park entrance. Gates closed. A sign said 8 p.m. I didn't know numbers, but I knew dark. I pressed my face to the bars. Cars zoomed by, headlights blinding. No Mama. I turned back, legs shaking, and curled under the oak's roots, leaves crunching like dry bones. The night smelled like cut grass and fear. That's when the whispers started. Not wind, but people, neighbors. Word travels fast in a small town. By evening, Mrs. Carter was on the phone, voice sharp. Margaret left her? In the park? That baby? Mr. Lopez knocked on doors. Someone called the cops. Sirens wailed distant, then closer. Red and blue lights painted the trees. I peeked from my hiding spot, heart hammering. Uniforms? Flashlights? Faye Hill? A woman officer called. I wanted to run to her, but what if Mama came back right then? What if she saw me with strangers and got mad again? I stayed put, teeth chattering. The search went on. Dogs barked. Radios crackled. They found my little shoe print by the pond. Someone said, 3 years old, blue dress, blonde curls. My curls were matted with leaves now. A news van pulled up outside the gates. Cameraman unloading gear. The whole neighborhood buzzed. Heard Margaret's been saying the kid's cursed, Mrs. Carter told a reporter. Always kneeling on rice, starving. Poor thing. Another neighbor shook her head. Should have called child services months ago. I didn't understand half the words, but I felt the weight. Cursed. Again. I pressed deeper into the roots, dirt under my nails, praying the ground would swallow me before Mama found me and punished me for leaving the spot. The officer's flashlight swept close. There! A beam caught my dress. Boots crunched. Big hands lifted me. Warm, not cold, like Mama's. Hey, sweetheart, we got you. I kicked, screamed. Ice cream! She's coming. The officer hugged me tight. Shh, it's okay. You're safe. Safe. The word felt foreign. They wrapped me in a blanket that smelled like coffee and smoke. Took me to the station. Bright lights. Too many faces. Someone gave me animal crackers. First food in 2 days. I ate slow, afraid it'd vanish. A social worker asked questions I couldn't answer. Where's Daddy? I shrugged. Daddy left before I could walk. They took pictures. My bruises, the dirt streaks. I fell asleep on a cot, thumb in mouth, dreaming of chocolate ice cream melting on the ground. Morning came gray. The station smelled like burnt coffee. Phones rang nonstop. Reporters outside shouted for Margaret. She never showed. Cops went to the old house, empty. Suitcases gone. Neighbors said she and David packed up fast after the fortune-teller visit. Cut off bad luck, Mrs. Carter repeated, crossing herself. The story hit the local news. Toddler abandoned in park, mother vanishes. That's when Susan appeared. My aunt, Mama's sister, though I barely remembered her face. She'd visited once, brought me a stuffed bear. Mama threw it out after. Susan stormed into the station, eyes red, clutching papers. I'm family, she told the social worker. Margaret's my sister. That baby's my blood. She knelt in front of me, voice soft. Faye, honey, look at me. I peeked through tangled hair. Her eyes were kind, not sharp. She smelled like vanilla and soap. I didn't trust kind. Kind disappeared, but my legs hurt, my tummy ached, and the blanket wasn't enough anymore. Susan opened her arms slow, like approaching a scared cat. Come with me, sweetie? Susan didn't let go of my hand the whole ride from the station. Her car smelled like vanilla air freshener and warm seats, nothing like the cold vinyl in the police cruiser. I kept staring at her fingers laced through mine. Soft. No sharp nails. She talked low, mostly to herself. We'll get this sorted, baby. You're safe now. I didn't answer. Safe still felt like a trick, but I was too tired to run. The social worker had papers stacked like bricks. Home visits, background checks, Margaret listed as whereabouts unknown. Susan signed everything without blinking. She's my niece, she told the judge a week later, voice steady. Blood don't abandon blood. The gavel fell. Temporary custody? Then permanent. I sat on a wooden bench outside the courtroom, swinging my legs, new shoes squeaking. Susan knelt, eye level. How about a new name, huh? Something pretty? I shrugged. Names were just sounds. She smiled anyway. Emily Grace, Emily for strong, Grace for the gift you are. I tasted it. Emily. It felt like slipping into a coat that fit. Their house was 2 streets over from the old peeling one, but it might as well have been another planet. White siding, flower boxes spilling petunias, a porch swing that creaked friendly. Robert opened the door before we reached it. Tall, sleeves rolled, flour on his apron from weekend pancakes. There's my girl, he said, like he'd known me forever. He didn't pick me up right away. Instead, he crouched, offered a high five. I slapped his palm shy. His hand swallowed mine. Warm, steady. Inside smelled like cinnamon and laundry soap. The living room had a couch you could sink into, not the scratchy kind with springs poking through. Pictures on the walls, Susan and Robert at the beach, arms around each other, laughing. No angry eyes staring down. My room was upstairs, painted butter yellow. A real bed with a quilt stitched in tiny flowers. Susan tucked me in that first night, humming something soft. I waited for the door to lock. It didn't. I waited for yelling. Silence. Just the tick of a clock and distant crickets. I cried then, face in the pillow so they wouldn't hear. Not sad tears, confused ones, like my body didn't know how to hold kindness. Mornings started with food. Actual food. Scrambled eggs fluffy, toast with real butter, orange juice in a plastic cup with a straw. Robert flipped pancakes into animal shapes. Elephant for Emily, he'd announce, sliding the plate. I ate slow at first, afraid it'd be taken away. Susan noticed. There's always more, honey. Eat till your tummy says stop. School came next. New backpack, crayons that smelled sharp and waxy. The bus stop was 2 houses down. Susan walked me every day till I stopped looking back. Kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Lee, had a voice like warm milk. I learned letters, colored inside lines, napped on a cot that didn't smell like mildew. Nights, I slept straight through. No nightmares of parks or empty plates. Word crawled back to Margaret eventually. She and David had resurfaced 3 towns over. New apartment, new lies. Mrs. Carter saw her at the grocery store, basket full of beer and frozen dinners. Heard you took in my trash? Margaret sneered when Susan bumped into her at the post office. Susan didn't flinch. That trash is blooming, Margaret. Maybe look in a mirror. Margaret's laugh was brittle. Mark my words. Cursed kids bring cursed luck. You'll see. She spread it everywhere. PTA meetings, beauty parlor, gas station. They're fools. That girl's poison. Neighbors who'd pitied me now crossed the street when Susan walked by. Robert just shook his head at dinner. Tongues wag. Let 'em. We know what's real. Real was bedtime stories. Robert's deep voice reading about dragons who turned kind. Real was Susan braiding my hair, fingers gentle, no yanking. Real was Saturday cartoons and popcorn that didn't have to be earned. I grew inches, cheeks filled out. The mirror showed a kid with shiny curls, not hollow eyes. But late at night, when the house settled, I'd press my ear to the wall, waiting for footsteps, for shouting. They never came. Still, Margaret's words clung like burrs. Bad luck. Cursed. Poison. One evening, Susan found me on the porch steps, tracing cracks in the wood. What's going on in that head, Emily Grace? I shrugged. What if she's right? Susan sat beside me, close but not crowding. People scared of their own shadows say all kinds of nonsense. You feel like bad luck? I thought of full plates, clean sheets, Robert's high fives. No, she nodded. Then that's your truth. Hers is just noise. Summer rolled in, sticky and sweet. Robert built a tree swing. I pumped my legs till the sky spun. Susan canned peaches, let me lick the spoon. School pictures came back, me smiling, gap-toothed, ribbon in my hair. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the warmth to sour. It didn't. But across town, Margaret watched the calendar, waiting too, waiting for proof, waiting for ruin. Bad luck or blessing, time will tell. I was 5, maybe 6, kicking a red rubber ball in the alley behind our house. The ball bounced off the fence, rolled under a pile of black trash bags someone had dumped there the night before. The bags were from the corner store getting fixed up. One bag was ripped open a little. I saw something shiny inside. Not cans, something heavy. I grabbed a stick and poked it. It made a dull clunk sound. I pulled the knot loose with my hands. Gold bars, real ones. Stamped, heavy, 10 or 12 of them. I sat there staring, mouth open. My heart started pounding hard. I didn't know what gold was worth, but I knew it was important. I tried to drag the bag. It was too heavy for me. I pulled it inch by inch across the alley, scraping my knees. The plastic tore a little more. One bar slid out. I picked it up. Cold. Smooth. I whispered, "Daddy, Daddy, come see." I left the bar on the step and ran inside. Robert was in the kitchen making sandwiches, flour on his hands. I grabbed his sleeve. Outside. Gold. Real gold. He wiped his hands on the towel and followed me out. Susan came right behind him. Robert knelt down. He peeled the bag open wider. The bars caught the sun and flashed. Susan put her hand over her mouth. Oh, my word. Robert didn't say anything for a long minute. He just looked. I saw his eyes move fast. I could almost hear him thinking, bills. The car needs tires. Emily needs shoes. A bigger house. All that flashed across his face. Greed. Normal greed. Anyone would think it. Then he looked at me. Really looked. This isn't ours, Emily Grace. Somebody out there is crying right now. He could have hidden it. Could have said, let's keep quiet. Could have put the bag in the garage and used it slow. Nobody would ever know. But Robert wasn't like that. He stood up. Susan, call the police. Tell them we found something big. Susan nodded fast. I sat on the back step while he loaded the bag into the truck. It took both of us to lift it. The bars clinked together like metal bones. I climbed in the middle seat. Susan buckled me. We drove to the station. I kept looking back at the bag. It filled the whole truck bed. At the police station, they took pictures, weighed it, wrote numbers. An officer asked me questions. Where exactly? I pointed on a map. They called it in. Turns out the gold came from Mr. Harlan's jewelry store downtown. Robbed 2 nights before. Safe cracked open. His whole life savings, they called him. He showed up in under 20 minutes. Old man. Shaky hands. Eyes red. He opened the bag and started crying right there in the lobby. I thought I'd lose everything, he said. He tried to hug Robert. Robert let him. Mr. Harlan pulled out a checkbook. 10,000. 20. Whatever you want. Robert pushed it away gentle. No, sir. Just glad you got it back. Harlan kept trying. Robert kept saying no. Finally, Harlan said, Then I'm telling everyone what you did. He called the newspaper himself. Next morning, front page. Local dad turns in stolen gold bars. Picture of Robert shaking Harlan's hand. Me hiding behind his leg, peeking out. Robert's boss saw the paper at the factory. By noon, he called Robert into the office. Promotion, foreman, double pay, full benefits. Robert came home early, tie already off. Big grin. Susan met him at the door. I watched from the hallway. Guess doing right pays off, he said. Susan laughed and kissed him. I ran and jumped into his arms. He spun me till I got dizzy. The neighborhood went crazy. Mrs. Carter brought apple pie. Mr. Lopez came over with beer and slapped Robert's back. Kids at school asked if we were millionaires. I just said, Daddy gave it back. Teachers smiled. Susan cut the article out and taped it above the fridge. Every time I got milk, I saw it. Robert shaking hands. Harlan crying happy, me in the corner. Word got around fast. Margaret heard it at the laundromat. A lady held up the paper. Your sister's husband, big hero. Margaret's face went tight. She grabbed the paper, read it, then tossed it in the trash. Staged, she muttered. They planned it. That kid's still bad luck. You watch. She told David that night. He laughed at first, then got quiet. They're getting attention, money coming. Not fair. Margaret started talking at the grocery store, the gas station, anywhere. Coincidence. Fake. That gold was planted. Wait till it turns sour. But it didn't turn sour. Not then. The promotion meant new uniforms for Robert. Better hours. Susan bought curtains for my room. I got new sneakers that lit up when I walked. We ate steak on Friday nights. Robert taught me to ride a bike in the driveway. I fell a lot. He picked me up every time. That's life, kiddo. Fall, get up. Keep going. Margaret kept watching from her side of town, waiting for the crash, waiting for proof. She told anyone who'd listen, bad luck don't stay gone. It comes back. News of the promotion reached Margaret like a slap. The lottery ticket came from a regular Tuesday. Robert stopped at the Shell station after his shift, still in his greasy work shirt, boots dusty from the factory floor. He bought 2 gallons of milk, a pack of gum, and on a whim, grabbed a scratch-off ticket from the roll by the register. Just for kicks, he told the clerk. I sat in the truck, coloring on an old receipt with a crayon I found under the seat. He scratched the silver off right there under the buzzing neon sign. First number, match. Second, match. Third. His hand froze. $50,000. He looked at the ticket, then at me, then let out a whoop so loud the clerk ran outside. You serious? Robert just held it up, grinning like a fool. We drove home slow. He kept the ticket in his shirt pocket, patting it every red light. Susan was folding laundry when we burst in. Robert pulled her into the kitchen, ticket between his fingers. Read it. She did, then read it again. Her mouth opened. No sound. Then tears. Then she grabbed me and Robert and squeezed till I squeaked. I didn't get the numbers, but I got the feeling. Big, warm, safe. We danced around the table, milk sloshing on the floor. Robert called it our miracle ticket. Susan called it breathing room. First thing, bills. Mortgage caught up. Truck got new tires. Roof patched before the next rain. Then Susan looked at me one night while I tapped spoons on pots. That girl needs a piano. I'd been making noise since I could reach the counter, humming, banging, copying radio tunes. They talked numbers at the table after I went to bed. Next Saturday, they woke me early. Road trip. We drove to the music store on Main. Pianos everywhere, black, brown, shiny, dusty. The salesman let me touch. I picked a small, upright, warm brown wood, keys like teeth. He played a simple song. I climbed up, pressed middle C. It rang clear. Susan's eyes shone. Robert nodded. We'll take it. Getting it home took Robert and 2 guys from work. They grunted up the porch steps, piano on a dolly. I held the door. It fit perfect in the corner by the window. Susan tuned it the first week. I started lessons with Mrs. Lee from church, $10 a half hour. I practiced every day after school. Scales first, then Twinkle Twinkle, then real songs. The house changed. Notes floated out the windows. Neighbors walking dogs slowed down to listen. Robert hummed while cooking. Susan sang harmony folding clothes. I played for tips at the factory picnic. Quarters in a jar. The restaurant idea grew slow. Robert cooked for everyone. Block parties, church potlucks, Little League end of year. People kept saying, "You should open a place." He laughed it off till the lottery check cleared. The corner diner went up for sale. Old blue building, cracked neon sign, grease smell baked in the walls. Robert walked through it one afternoon. Susan brought graph paper. I carried crayons. We planned at the kitchen table. Robert would cook. Susan would run front. I'd bus tables, draw specials on the board. The leftover lottery money bought the lease, new grill, paint, tables. Susan picked sunny yellow for the walls. Robert fixed the fryer himself. I wrote the menu in big letters: burgers, fries, chili, pie. Opening day, we unlocked at 11. Line already formed. Factory guys, teachers, kids from my school. Robert flipped burgers nonstop. Susan wrote orders on a pad, smiling through sweat. I ran plates, pockets stuffed with napkins. By 2, booths full, counter full, people waiting outside. Cash register dinged steady, tips piled in a coffee can. We sold out of pie by 4. Robert high-fived me over the grill. "We did it, kiddo!" Word spread fast. Best fries in town. Chili with just enough kick. Pie crust flaky. People came from 2 towns over. Robert added meatloaf Wednesdays. Susan baked cobbler. I played piano during slow hours. Old songs, new songs, whatever fit the mood. Margaret got the news third hand. David's cousin still worked the factory line, saw Robert's new schedule, heard the chatter. "Lottery? 50 grand?" Margaret repeated at the laundromat, folding David's shirts too hard. "Figures." She told the lady next dryer, the cashier at checkout, the mailman. Dumb luck. Not brains, not good hearts. That kid's a fluke. David came home, slammed the door. "Restaurant packed already. Our fridge is empty." Margaret paced the kitchen. "Coincidence? All of it. Wait till the health guy comes. Wait till bills pile." They drove by the diner one Thursday night. Windows down, radio low. Cars lined the curb. Laughter spilled out. Margaret's knuckles white on the wheel. "Not fair," she hissed. "We work. They win." But we work too. Robert up at 5, prepping chili. Susan counting receipts till midnight. Me wiping tables, learning change, practicing scales between orders. The place grew. Added booths. Hired Maria to waitress full-time. Jose came weekends to flip burgers when Robert needed a break. Jukebox went in. Quarters only. I played heart and soul with customers. Tips doubled, tripled, bank account filled. Susan bought flowered curtains for the house. Robert got a real haircut, not the clippers at home. I got braces, metal smile coming slow. We ate steak Fridays, not just holidays. Robert taught me to ride my new bike in the diner lot after close. I crashed into trash cans. He laughed, picked me up. "Try again." Margaret kept watching, kept talking. Lucky streak. That's it. David bet $20 at the bar the health inspector would fail us. Inspector came, poked around, gave us an A sticker for the window. Margaret saw our ad in the paper. Family photo, me at the piano, pie slice big as my head. She crumpled it, threw it at the wall. "Not right," she told David. "They don't deserve." Chloe heard every word, hid in her room with the door cracked, knees to chest, wishing she could disappear. One rainy Tuesday, diner slow, I wiped the counter humming. Door creaked open, just enough for a small face. Pale, big eyes, hair in a messy braid. Chloe. She stared at the piano, at the yellow walls, at me pouring coffee. Her gaze darted like a scared bird. Then the door shut soft. I stood there, rag dripping, heart thumping. I knew those eyes, family eyes. Chloe's eyes peeking through the door. Chloe's house sat 3 miles from the diner, but it might as well have been on the other side of the moon. The siding was gray-green, curling at the edges like old paper. The front steps sagged, and the screen door hung by one hinge. Inside smelled like sour milk and cigarette smoke that never left the curtains. Margaret woke every morning already angry, like the day owed her something. David rolled in from night shift at the warehouse, boots caked in grease, and the first thing out of his mouth was always the same. "Still no boy." Chloe, 7 going on 30, heard it while she set the table with 3 mismatched plates. She moved quiet, quick, hoping not to be noticed. Being noticed meant trouble. The obsession with a son never cooled. Margaret kept a notebook by the fridge. Dates, temperatures, ovulation strips stuck to the pages like dead leaves. Every month, she crossed off another failure. "Another girl would ruin us," she told David loud enough for Chloe to hear from the hallway. David grunted, cracked open a beer. "We try again. Sell the couch if we have to." Chloe folded laundry in the corner, tiny socks and David's giant work shirts. She folded them perfect, corners sharp, praying they'd see the effort. Margaret walked past, kicked the pile. Do it again. Wrinkles. Chloe's chores grew with her height. At 4, she poured cereal. At 5, she scrubbed the toilet with the brush Margaret used on the floor. By 6, she was on her knees with a toothbrush and bleach because the mop missed the corners. Breakfast was whatever David left. Half a sausage link, crust of toast, cold coffee if she was lucky. She ate standing over the sink so crumbs wouldn't hit the floor. Margaret watched like a prison guard. Faster! You think I got all day? Chloe's stomach growled loud enough to echo. She swallowed air and kept scrubbing. Talking back meant no dinner. Silence was safer. The story of Emily came in shards. Chloe pieced it together like a puzzle with missing edges. First from neighbors. Your mama left your sister in the park when she was 3. Then from Margaret herself, drunk on cheap wine after another negative test. Faye blocked the boy, had to cut the curse. Chloe hid behind the couch, knees to chest, breathing through her mouth so they wouldn't hear. Park. Ice cream lie. 3 years old. The words looped in her head while she slept. She started checking the locks 3 times before bed. Counted windows, practiced holding her breath under the blanket. How long before black spots danced? Just in case they decided she was next. School was the only place the yelling stopped. Chloe walked the 2 miles, shoes with holes, backpack heavy with worry. Teachers called her Quiet Mouse. She sat in the back, drew in the margins of math worksheets. 2 stick girls under a big sun, one with curly hair, one with braids. She labeled them Emily and Chloe, hid the pages inside her textbook. At lunch, she traded her apple for extra milk because her stomach hurt from hunger. The janitor slipped her crackers sometimes. Growing girl, he winked. Chloe smiled small, saved half for the walk home. Margaret found a drawing once. Chloe had fallen asleep at the table, pencil still in hand. Margaret snatched the paper, eyes narrowing at the 2 happy figures. What's this? Chloe woke to the rip, paper torn clean in half. No sister, no fairy tales. Margaret dumped rice on the kitchen tile. Kneel. Chloe's knees hit hard grains. Pain shot up her legs. She bit her lip bloody to stay quiet. 2 hours. Margaret sat watching TV, volume loud. Chloe's tears mixed with the rice stuck to her skin. When David came home, Margaret told him, teaching respect. He nodded, grabbed a beer. Nights were the worst. Chloe lay on a mattress that smelled like mildew, springs poking her back. She whispered to the dark ceiling. Emily, do you have a real bed? Do you eat pie? In her head, Emily lived in the yellow diner she'd peeked into once. Piano in the corner, smell of fries, people laughing. Chloe pictured Emily playing songs, Susan hugging her, Robert flipping burgers with a smile. She imagined walking through the door, Emily looking up, saying, There you are. Chloe practiced the words under her breath. I'm your sister. Don't leave me. She fell asleep, clutching the torn half-drawing, edges soft from handling. The fear grew roots. Every spilled glass, every B on a test, every time Margaret sighed too loud, Chloe's heart raced. She started hiding food, a cracker in her sock, a slice of bread flattened in her pocket. She counted steps to the front door, 12 from her room, practiced opening the window latch with one hand. At night, she dreamed of the park. Swings empty, her own small shoes left behind. She woke, gasping, checked that her blanket was still there, that she was still there. David's whispers started after midnight. Chloe pressed her ear to the wall. Bills stacked to the ceiling. Repo Man took the TV. Margaret's voice sharp. We need cash. Fertility doctor ain't cheap. David lower. Crushing debts. Interest eating us alive. Chloe pulled the blanket over her head, but the words leaked through. She didn't know what interest meant, but she knew crushing. She knew alive. She curled smaller, praying they wouldn't look at her as the answer. David whispered about crushing debts. Margaret came to the diner on a Tuesday, right after the lunch rush, when the smell of fries still hung in the air and the floor was sticky with spilled Coke. The bell above the door jangled hard, like it was mad too. She marched straight to the counter where Susan was counting quarters into rolls. David trailed behind, boots scuffing, arms crossed tight over his dirty work jacket. The last two customers at booth 3 stopped chewing to watch. "We need to talk," Margaret announced, loud enough for the cook in the back to hear. Susan didn't look up at first, just kept stacking coins. "Talk about what?" Margaret slapped a folded newspaper on the counter, our lottery ad, creased and coffee-stained. "That 50 grand. Half belongs to us. Faye was my kid first." Susan finally met her eyes. "Emily's ours now. Papers signed? Go home, Margaret." Margaret leaned over the counter, voice dropping to a hiss. "I carried her, birthed her. You stole her." David stepped up beside her. "We raised her 3 years. Diapers, food, roof, pay up." A fry cook peeked through the pass-through. I sat at the piano bench, pretending to practice scales, but my fingers froze on the keys. Robert came out, wiping grease off his hands with a red rag. "You left her in a park with no coat. Remember?" Margaret's face went red. "Temporary mistake. We want compensation. Half the winnings. Part of this place. Maybe the house, too." Susan laughed once, sharp. "Take it to court. You'll lose." Margaret grabbed the newspaper, crumpled it. "You'll regret this." She spun out, David following. The bell jangled again. Customers whispered. One old man shook his head. "Family, huh?" Next morning, a thick envelope arrived. Lawyer letter on cheap stationery. Demand for $25,000. Half the restaurant profits lean on the house. Susan read it at the kitchen table while I ate cereal. "They're desperate," she said. Robert snorted. "Desperate, don't win." We took it to Mr. Jenkins, the lawyer who handled my adoption. He scanned it, chuckled. "No standing. Abandonment severs rights. Case closed." Hearing was 2 weeks later. Margaret showed up in a wrinkled blazer, hair pulled tight. David wore the same jacket. Judge barely looked up. Petition denied. Costs to respondents. Margaret stormed out yelling, "This ain't over." David kicked the courthouse trash can on the way out. Rumors started the same day. Margaret hit the beauty shop where Susan got her hair trimmed once a month. They cooked the books at that diner. Skim tips, Susan pockets cash. At the gas station, she told the pump guys Robert got promoted by sleeping with the boss's secretary. David spread it at the bar. Factory guys repeated it on the line. "Thompson's a cheat. Gold return was a stunt." One regular at the diner asked Robert point blank, "Heard you failed health inspection twice." Robert handed him a fresh burger. "Eat. Taste dirty?" The guy laughed. Came back twice a week. Business dipped for 6 days. Empty booths at lunch. Susan kept smiling. I played louder on the piano. Word of mouth fixed it. People trust full bellies over gossip. Margaret's lies dried up like old gum on the sidewalk. David got a stock tip from a guy named Rico at the bar. Some tech startup, guaranteed to triple. David came home waving a scribbled napkin. 5 grand in, 15 out in a month. They scraped it together, maxed 2 credit cards, pawned Margaret's wedding ring, sold the microwave. Margaret counted the cash on the table while Chloe folded laundry in the corner. I heard about the company from Mr. Lopez, who fixed our walk-in cooler. "Layoffs coming. Stock's trash." I told Robert that night. He passed the warning through a buddy to David. "Emily says sell now." David laughed over the phone. "Kid plays piano, not Wall Street." They bought more shares on margin. Next morning, headline, "Company files bankruptcy." Stock dropped to pennies. 5 grand gone. Margaret screamed so loud, Chloe hid in the bathtub. David punched the wall, left a hole. "Your tip was poison." Margaret threw the napkin at him. Chloe swept up the pieces. Jobs unraveled fast. David mouthed off to his new supervisor about lazy management during a safety meeting. Fired on the spot. Margaret called in sick 3 shifts at the motel, blaming Chloe for not setting the alarm. Manager replaced her with a high school kid. Rent check bounced. Repo Man took the TV first, then the couch. A local car dealership offered David a franchise. Sell used sedans, big commission. Meeting was Thursday at 9. They fought all night about whose fault the stocks were. Overslept. Got there at noon. Spot gone to the guy behind them. Margaret cried in the parking lot. David kicked the tire. We're cursed now. Bills stacked like bricks. Electricity cut off twice. Chloe ate cold cereal by flashlight. Margaret paced the kitchen, muttering about the Thompsons' big house, full fridge, piano. They owe us. David poured whiskey into a jelly jar. Need a new plan. Margaret stared at Chloe doing dishes, eyes narrow. David followed her gaze, voice low. What if we use Chloe? The loan sharks didn't waste time with polite reminders. It started with block numbers ringing at 6 a.m., Margaret snatching the old corded phone off the wall, voice syrupy until the man on the other end cut in. 10 grand by Friday, plus vig, or we come collect. She slammed the receiver so hard the plastic cracked. David sat at the table in his boxers, head in hands, coffee cold. That was Little Sal? Margaret nodded. Interest's killing us. First loan was 5 grand for fertility clinic deposits. Still no son. Then another 3 for the stock disaster. Another 2 to keep the lights on. Hey, each week the total climbed. 15, 18, 22. Letters came in red envelopes. Final notice, stamped like blood. Repo Man took the sedan first. David watched from the porch, fists clenched. Then the flat screen, the microwave, Margaret's good winter coat. They sold the lawnmower at a yard sale for $40. Still short? The first real collection visit came on a Wednesday night, just after 9. Chloe was in bed pretending to sleep when headlights swept the cracked driveway. 2 heavy knocks rattled the door. David peeked through the blinds, muttered, "It's them." Margaret stubbed out her cigarette and opened the door a crack. Big Tony's guy, Marco, gold chain, knuckles scarred, stood on the step with a clipboard. 22.5, cash, tonight. David tried bluffing. We got half next week. Marco stepped inside without asking, boots thudding. Half don't cut it. Boss wants the girl as down payment or the full amount. He tapped the clipboard. Sign here. Chloe Warren works the debt. Room, board, chores. 10 years, or till it's paid. Margaret's voice cracked. She's 9. Marco shrugged. Kids grow. Debt don't. David reached for the pen, hand shaking. Margaret snatched it away. Give us till Friday. Marco smiled without warmth. Friday, 6 p.m., cash or kid. We'll be back. He left a yellow carbon copy on the table. Contract, Chloe's name already typed in the blank. The SUV idled outside another minute, engine growling, then peeled away. Margaret locked the door, leaned against it, slid to the floor. David stared at the paper like it might bite. Chloe heard every word from the hallway, blanket over her head, heart racing so hard the mattress shook. Nights got loud. Margaret paced the cracked linoleum, cigarette burning forgotten between her fingers. We're drowning. David opened another beer, third of the night. Big Tony don't wait. Chloe scrubbed the counter for the 3rd time, ears tuned to every word. She'd learned to make herself small, but the walls were thin. Electricity got cut Tuesday, came back Thursday after David begged the neighbor for an extension cord. Chloe ate peanut butter straight from the jar with a plastic spoon, sitting on the back step so the dark wouldn't swallow her. Margaret caught her. Waste not. Slap across the cheek. Chloe tasted blood, kept quiet. Friday came. No money. A black SUV rolled slow past the house twice. Tinted windows. Engine rumbling like a warning. David peeked through the blinds, sweat on his upper lip. That's Tony's guys. Margaret lit another cigarette with shaking hands. Kitchen table became a war zone. Envelopes, calculator, crumpled receipts. Margaret counted the last of the cash. $211. David slammed the table. We're dead. Silence stretched. Chloe folded laundry in the corner. Tiny socks. David's work shirt stiff with grease. Margaret's eyes slid to her, slow, like a snake. She's what, 9? Healthy? Quiet. Some folks pay good for live-in help. David stared at the table, then at Chloe. You mean? Margaret nodded, smoke curling. Collateral. Temporary. She works the debt off. Housekeeping. Whatever. Better than broken legs. David swallowed hard. Like indenture? Margaret shrugged. Call it what you want. Tony gets his money, we get breathing room. They shook on it over warm beer, clink of bottles sealing the deal. Chloe dropped the laundry basket. Socks scattered. She backed into the wall, heart hammering so loud she thought they'd hear. Margaret's head snapped around. Pick those up. Chloe knelt, hands trembling. That night she waited until the TV droned and snores rattled through the wall, slipped to the bathroom, locked the flimsy door, sat on the cold tile with her knees to her chest. Tears came hot and fast. She whispered to the cracked mirror, Emily, please help me. Grabbed her school notebook from the backpack, spiral kind with a cardboard cover, tore out a back page. Pencil shaking, she wrote, Mom and Dad owe bad men. They're giving me away to pay. I'm scared. Find me. Emily. Folded it tiny, creased it again and again until it was the size of a quarter. Tucked it into her sock, under the arch where it wouldn't fall out. Morning came gray. Margaret yanked Chloe's arm. Get dressed. Errands. Chloe's stomach flipped. She pulled on the same jeans, same faded shirt. Margaret drove the borrowed neighbor car. Rust spots. No AC. Windows down. Hot wind whipping hair. Chloe clutched her backpack like a shield. They pulled up behind the diner at 10 sharp. Take these trash bags to the dumpster, Margaret ordered, shoving 3 heavy bags at her. Hurry. Don't talk to anyone. Chloe's legs felt like water. She dragged the bags one by one across the gravel, rocks biting through her thin soles. Through the screen door she saw me, wiping tables, ponytail swinging, humming while I worked. Our eyes met for a second. Chloe's breath caught. She let the last bag slip. Just enough. The tiny folded note fluttered out, landing in the dirt beside a crushed soda can. Margaret's car horn blared. Now, Chloe! Chloe stumbled back, tears blurring everything. Margaret grabbed her elbow hard enough to bruise. Move! Chloe begged, voice cracking. Please, Mama, don't do this. I'll be good. I'll clean faster. Margaret shoved her into the passenger seat. Too late for good. Shut up or it gets worse. I finished closing, locking the front, then took the trash out, back like always. The dumpster lid squeaked. Something white caught my eye in the gravel. A folded paper, dirty, small. I picked it up, unfolded it under the security light. Chloe's handwriting, shaky loops, smudged with tears or sweat. Mom and Dad owe bad men. They're giving me away to pay. I'm scared. Find me. Emily. My stomach dropped to my shoes. Hands went cold. I read it 3 times to make sure. Ran inside, note clenched in my fist. Susan was cashing out the register. Mom, voice cracked. She turned, saw my face. I shoved the paper at her. She read once, eyes widening, read again, face going hard as the counter. Robert, she called toward the kitchen. He came out wiping his hands, read it silent, looked at me. We're getting her, now. Emily obtains her first piece of evidence. We didn't wait for sunrise. The moment Susan closed the diner register and Robert locked the safe, we were in the truck. I still had Chloe's note in my fist, the paper soft from sweat. Robert called Detective Harris from the parking lot, the same officer who carried me out of the park when I was 3. His voice was gravel over the speaker. Bring the note. Meet me at the station in 20. Susan grabbed a Tupperware of chocolate chip cookies from the counter, the ones Chloe had stared at through the window weeks ago. Kids need something sweet after nightmares, she said. I didn't argue. My own stomach was knots. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and bleach. Harris read the note once under the flickering fluorescent, then again slower, lips moving. His partner, Officer Ruiz, leaned over his shoulder. This is trafficking. Plain and simple. Harris looked at me. You sure she's there tonight? I nodded. She wrote it today. Plans snapped together like puzzle pieces. Harris and Ruiz would knock first. Official welfare check. Robert, Susan, and I would wait in the unmarked van 2 houses down. If Chloe was inside and willing, immediate extraction. If not, search warrant by morning. Robert's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "No mistakes," he repeated. Susan squeezed my knee. "We get her, that's it." We parked under a broken streetlight at 11:47 p.m. The Warren house looked smaller than I remembered. Gray siding peeling, one porch bulb flickering, no cars in the drive, lights off inside except a dim glow from the back. Harris and Ruiz approached, badges glinting. Heavy knock. Door cracked 6 inches. Margaret's voice, thick with sleep and anger. "Who the hell?" Harris pushed the door wider with a flat palm. "Child Services. Step aside, ma'am." David stumbled into the hallway in boxers, yelling about warrants. Ruiz was already past him. I saw movement through the front window. Chloe in faded pajamas, hair tangled, eyes huge. She pressed her face to the glass. Our eyes locked. Her mouth formed my name. Emily. Ruiz opened the door from inside. Chloe bolted barefoot across the gravel, sharp stones cutting her soles. She crashed into me so hard I staggered. You came," she sobbed into my neck, whole body shaking. Susan wrapped us both in the blanket from the van seat. Robert stood between us and the porch like a wall. Margaret lunged out in a ratty robe, screaming, "She's mine! You can't take her!" Harris caught her wrist mid-air, cuffed it to the other behind her back. David charged. Second cuff snapped on before he cleared the steps. Child endangerment, attempted human trafficking, obstruction. Chloe buried deeper into me, whispering, "Don't let go." I didn't. Inside the house, evidence poured out like dirty water. Harris found the yellow carbon contract on the kitchen table, Chloe's full name typed in the blank, Margaret's signature fresh, David's scrawl beside it. 10-year labor or until debt paid in full. Bank statements showed wire transfers to an account labeled T. Marconi. Big Tony. Old files from my abandonment resurfaced in minutes. Original police report, park janitor statement, hospital records of Margaret's postpartum hemorrhage. Chloe sat on the van floor, blanket around her shoulders, giving statement to a social worker with gentle eyes, voice small but steady. They said I'd clean houses, cook, whatever the men wanted. 10 years. I'm 9. The social worker wrote every word. Doctor at the ER documented bruises, finger-shaped on arms, rice grain scars on knees from years back. Photos taken under harsh lights. Susan recorded audio on her phone, Margaret still yelling from the squad car. By 4 a.m., the file was thick. DA's office opened early. Emergency hearing. Arraignment at 9. Margaret in an orange jumpsuit, 2 sizes too big, hair stringy, no makeup. David unshaven, eyes bloodshot, charges read like a grocery list. 2 counts, child abandonment. Me and Chloe, human trafficking, endangerment, conspiracy, bail denied, flight risk, prior abandonment on record. Margaret glared across the aisle at me. You stole my life. I met her stare. You threw mine away first, twice. Trial lasted 3 days, not months. Jury was 8 women, 4 men, half parents. Prosecution laid it out clean. My park file, Chloe's contract, bank wires, medical photos. Chloe testified behind a screen, voice cracking only once. I thought they'd leave me somewhere dark. Defense tried superstition angle. Margaret claimed she was protecting the family line. Judge shut it down. Superstition isn't a defense for felony. Closing arguments short, jury out 1 hour, 43 minutes. Guilty on every count. Sentencing was immediate. Judge Ramirez, the same one who signed my adoption papers years ago, didn't flinch. Margaret Hill, David Warren, your actions show a pattern of treating children as disposable commodities. 10 years each, no parole eligibility for the first 5. Gavel cracked like a bone. Margaret screamed, lunged at the table. Bailiffs pinned her. David slumped, face in cuffed hands. Chloe squeezed my hand so tight, her nails left crescents. Officers led them out. Margaret still yelling. David silent. Courtroom doors closed with a heavy final thud. Chloe's tears came then, quiet, shaking, soaking my shirt. Relief, terror, everything at once. I held her tighter. Perhaps a new beginning. The first new diner opened exactly 2 years after the courtroom doors slammed shut. We picked a busy strip mall off the interstate. High traffic, low rent. Robert kept the original recipes, but added breakfast all day because truckers asked. Susan hired a sign painter to copy the chalkboard menu in bright colors. Chloe and I spent a full Saturday painting the name in careful letters. Thompson's Home Cooking, location number 2. We hung a small piano in the corner, same model as the first, just newer. Opening morning, cars lined up before we flipped the sign. Robert flipped eggs nonstop. Susan greeted every customer by name if she could. Chloe passed out free coffee samples. I played a short set, old standards, a few originals. Tips jar overflowed. By month 3, we broke even. By year 1, we paid cash for location 3. Growth felt steady, not flashy. Robert promoted Maria to general manager of the original spot so he could scout. Susan handled books, kept margins tight. I started noticing patterns nobody else saw. Empty lots near new schools, foreclosure signs on brick buildings with good bones. At 15, I sat Robert down with a notebook. This duplex 2 blocks from the high school. Buy it, fix slow, rent to teachers. He trusted me after the stock warning years back. We closed for 20, under asking. Weekends became renovation parties. Robert swinging hammers, Susan picking warm gray paint, Chloe handing nails and singing off-key. Rented both units in a week. Cash flow positive. Next was a tired strip of shops on the east side. I mapped traffic with colored pencils, predicted foot flow from the new grocery. Robert laughed, called me his secret weapon. Banks laughed less when the first flip sold for double. Portfolio grew quiet. Fourplexes, small office conversions, a warehouse turned artist lofts. Money worked while we slept, but we still showed up at 5 a.m. to flip burgers. Integrity in the grease. Chloe's healing took patience, not miracles. First month, she flinched at loud voices. Therapy twice a week with Dr. Patel, gentle woman, soft rugs, tissues always ready. Nightmares came in waves. I'd wake to find her in my bed, small again. We left the hall light on. Food helped. Susan's mac and cheese, Robert's pancakes shaped like hearts. Chloe gained 8 pounds, then 12. Cheeks rounded. She asked for braces. We scheduled the consult, shared my room. 2 twin beds pushed together under the slanted ceiling. We whispered after lights out, traded secrets. She learned heart and soul on piano, fingers clumsy but proud. I taught her chords between homework. Susan tucked us in like when we were little, even when we pretended we were too old. Robert built real bunk beds when we outgrew twins. Chloe took top, claimed the view of the oak tree. School changed, too. Honors roll, art club, sleepovers where friends asked about the scar on her knee. She told the rice story without crying. Confidence grew like ivy. Margaret's release came quiet. Parole board cited overcrowding. Good behavior. Cleaning toilets earns points. Officer dropped her at a gray halfway house on the edge of town. No skills, no references. Margaret's last years dragged in a windowless studio above a laundromat. Hot in summer, cold in winter, the constant rumble of dryers shaking the floor. She pushed a mop at the same motel chain she once bossed. Uniform 2 sizes too big, name tag crooked. Tips were quarters left on nightstands. She counted them like gold. David fared worse. Prison work crew, then halfway house, then odd jobs that never lasted. A heart attack took him at 59 while changing a flat tire on a county road. No one stopped. Margaret got the call collect. She sat on the sagging couch, stared at the wall, whispered, "We thought we were cutting bad luck." The curse she invented swallowed them whole. No visitors, no letters answered, no fortune teller to blame. Just regret, thick and sour, every breath a reminder. Do evil, lose everything. Took a motel maid job, same chain she once managed, pushing a cart down dim hallways that smelled like bleach and regret. Studio apartment the size of our old pantry, Peeling linoleum, hot plate, TV with rabbit ears. She sent one letter on cheap stationery. I was wrong. The curse was me. Chloe read it once in the kitchen, sunlight on the table, folded it small, slid it into a shoebox under her bed. We never opened it again. Margaret died at 62. Heart gave out, mopping a third-floor corridor. Obituary 2 lines in the free paper. We didn't attend. Chloe lit a candle at the diner instead, whispered, "Rest, I guess." Chloe and I turned pain into purpose. Started with school visits, assemblies on abuse, superstition, listening to kids who flinch. Crowds grew. Local news picked it up, then a national morning show. We founded the Lucky Star Fund with diner profits, scholarships for foster kids, emergency shelters, a 24-hour hotline staffed by survivors, taught piano basics in community centers, coding boot camps in libraries, self-defense in church basements. Every new location got a plaque, built on second chances. Dark past fueled bright work. Kindness compounded like interest, only better. One quiet Tuesday, original diner empty after close, Chloe and I locked the front door. Lights low, just the neon open sign buzzing off. We sat side by side on the piano bench, like always. I ran my fingers over the keys. Cool, familiar. Chloe nudged my shoulder. "Play the one we wrote?" I started the melody we'd built together over years. Simple, hopeful, major chords, lifting like sunrise. She added harmony, voice soft but sure. Notes filled the room, spilled out the open side door into the warm summer night. Past and future braided in the air. A new life begins. Emily touches the piano keys. The melody of a new life begins. Hey, you. Yes, you listening right now? Did my story hit you anywhere? Tell me in the comments. What city are you from? I read every single one. If these words moved you, toss a super thanks my way so I can keep sharing real-life journeys like this. Your support keeps the mic hot and the stories flowing. Thank you, truly, for being here. On screen, you'll see 2 new true stories I handpicked. They'll stay with you. My channel's full of more. Hit subscribe so we don't miss each other. See you in the next one, with all love and respect.